In a small town in northern England, there was a terrier named JT. Every afternoon, sometime between 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock, JT would get up, walk to the window, and wait. Not for food, not because someone had opened the gate, not because a car had pulled into the driveway. He would wait for his owner, who, at that exact moment, was getting into her car to come home from wherever she happened to be. Work, the pub, a shop across town. It didn't seem to matter. When she started coming home, JT went to the window. And in the 1990s, this made him famous. A scientist came to study him. Cameras were installed. People watched the footage again and again. A whole book was written about him. A real published book, arguing that JT could somehow read his owner's mind across distances. And I want to tell you up front, that is not what was happening. But what was happening may be even stranger. Because your dog is probably doing a smaller version of it right now. Maybe not as dramatically as JT. Maybe your dog does not walk to the window at the exact second you turn the car around. But you have seen it. It is 4:47 in the afternoon. Your dog has been asleep on the rug for 2 hours. The room is quiet. Nothing has changed. The light on the wall is the same. The front door is closed. There is no sound of tires outside. No footsteps. No keys. No voice. And then, your dog lifts their head. Not all the way. Just a little. Their ears shift. Their eyes open. They hold still for a few seconds, as if they are listening to something you cannot hear. Then, they lower their head again. 5 minutes later, they do it again. 10 minutes after that, they are standing by the door. And you think, how did they know? Because they did know. You know they knew. Every dog owner has seen something like this and quietly filed it under the general magic of dogs. Dogs know when we are sad. Dogs know when we are about to leave. Dogs know when we are coming home. And after a while, we stop questioning it. We just say, that's dogs. But it is not magic. It is not luck. And it is not exactly routine either. It is at least 3 things happening at the same time. A clock in the body, a memory of absence, and something invisible in the air that your dog may be reading more carefully than you have ever imagined. Start with the first one, because it is the one most people already suspect. Your dog has a body clock, just like you do. Even if there is no wall clock, no alarm, no phone screen, the body still tracks the day. Hormones rise and fall. Energy changes. Alertness changes. Sleepiness changes. Dogs have daily rhythms too. Cortisol rises in the morning and helps wake the body up. It dips through the middle of the day. Melatonin follows its own cycle at night. The nervous system, the stomach, the muscles, even the urge to move, all begin to organize themselves around patterns of light, darkness, food, rest, and activity. This is not something your dog had to learn from you. It is older than training, older than leashes, older than living rooms. A puppy raised far away from clocks would still have a rhythm inside them, because mammals were built to survive by knowing when to wake, when to search, when to rest, when the world is changing. So when your dog starts becoming alert around the same time every evening, part of that is simply the body whispering, it is almost that time. Maybe that explains 15 or 20% of it. Maybe it explains why your dog becomes a little more awake in the late afternoon. But it does not explain the part that feels impossible. It does not explain why the head lifts before anything happens. It does not explain why the waiting begins before the car is close enough to hear. And it definitely does not explain JT walking to the window when his owner had only just decided to come home. So we need the second piece. Because your dog is not only tracking the time of day, your dog is tracking the shape of your absence. And that changes everything. Because to you, leaving the house is a simple thing. You grab your keys. You say, I'll be back later. You close the door. Then your day keeps moving. You go to work. You answer messages. You sit in traffic. You stop for groceries. Time keeps breaking itself into little pieces. But for your dog, the moment you leave is different. The house does not become empty. It becomes incomplete. Your chair is still there. Your shoes are still by the door. Your smell is still in the room. The water bowl is there. The sounds of the street are there. But the center of the pattern is gone. And dogs are very good at patterns. In 2011, two researchers at the Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences, Therese Wren and Linda Keeling, ran a simple experiment that showed something most dog owners already feel, but rarely know how to explain. They filmed dogs who had been left home alone for different lengths of time: 30 minutes, 2 hours, 4 hours. Then, they watched what happened when the owner came back. The dogs left alone for 2 hours greeted their owners much more intensely than the dogs left alone for only 30 minutes. More tail movement, more body contact, more excitement, more sound. That part makes sense. But then came the strange part. The dogs left alone for 4 hours did not greet their owners that much more intensely than the dogs left alone for 2. In other words, dogs seem to notice the difference between a short absence and a longer absence. But after a certain point, the clock became blurry. They were not counting minutes the way we do. They were not sitting there thinking, "It has been 1 hour and 47 minutes." They were measuring something more emotional than that. They were measuring your absence. That is why your dog can act as if you have returned from a dangerous expedition after a trip to the store. To you, it was 2 hours. To them, you were gone. And once you were gone long enough, the details stopped mattering. 4 hours, 7 hours, a full workday. The emotional category may be the same. You disappeared from the world they can reach, and then suddenly, impossibly, you came back through the door. That is why the reunion can feel so dramatic. Your dog is not being ridiculous. Your dog is not overreacting. Your dog is experiencing the return of the most important pattern in the house. And this is where the first two pieces start to connect. The body clock says, "It is late afternoon." The memory of absence says, "They have been gone long enough." Together, those two signals create anticipation. But anticipation is still not the same as knowing. It can make a dog restless. It can make them raise their head. It can make them pace from the couch to the hallway. But it still does not fully explain why some dogs seem to know the return is close before there is any sound, any car, any key, any visible sign at all. So now, we have to talk about the third piece, the one that feels almost impossible until you hear it. Because your dog may not only be remembering when you usually come home, they may be smelling how long you have been gone. Alexandra Horowitz, who runs the Dog Cognition Lab at Barnard College in New York, has spent years trying to understand what the world is like from inside a dog's head. And one of her most fascinating ideas is this: dogs may read time through scent, not symbolically, not poetically, literally. When you leave the house in the morning, your scent does not leave with you. It stays on the couch, on the rug, in the hallway, on the door handle, in the air. At first, the house is full of you. Then, slowly, hour by hour, the scent begins to thin. And that thinning is not random. Scent fades in a pattern. Molecules spread out. Air moves. Fabric releases what it has been holding. The sharpness of your smell becomes softer. The rooms slowly change from "they just left" to "they have been gone for a while." You would never notice this. To you, the house simply smells like home. But your dog lives in a world built out of scent. A smell is not just a smell. It is information. It is direction. It is memory. And in this case, it may even be time. By late afternoon, your scent may have dropped to a level your dog has learned over and over again. Not once, not twice, but hundreds of times. Morning smells like you just left. Noon smells like waiting. Late afternoon smells like almost. And just before you come home, the house reaches a very specific version of your absence. That may be the moment your dog lifts their head, not because they heard the car, not because they saw the door move, but because the air itself has changed enough to say, "Soon." This is the part that makes the whole thing feel different. Your dog is not just waiting in a room. Your dog is inside a fading map of you, and every day, that map slowly changes. There was even a documentary test that made this idea feel almost unreal. An owner left the house in the morning, the way they normally would. But later in the day, people came in and spread the owner's worn shirt around the rooms, refreshing the owner's scent in the house. And the dog's usual waiting pattern changed. The dog did not go to the window at the normal time. The routine was delayed. It was as if someone had turned the scent clock backward. Because to the dog, the house no longer smelled like almost home. It smelled earlier. That is not a trick. That is not obedience. That is a nervous system, reading a chemical gradient in the air and using it to locate itself in the day. So when your dog waits before you arrive, it is not one signal. It is a chord. The body clock says it is the right part of the day. The memory of absence says they have been gone long enough. The scent in the air says the house now smells like the moment before return. And if your schedule is unpredictable, this may look different. If you leave at 8 o'clock one day, noon the next, and stay home the day after that, your dog may not wait at the window. That does not mean your dog is less smart. It does not mean your dog loves you less. It means the scent clock has nothing steady to learn. So your dog may become brilliant at reading the final seconds instead. The sound of your car, the rhythm of your steps, the small scrape of your key, the way the air changes when someone is outside the door. It is not less love. It is a different interface. And that brings us back to JT. Maybe he was not reading his owner's mind. Maybe he was reading something much more intimate. Years of scent fading through the same rooms. Years of afternoon light hitting the same window. Years of village sounds, engine patterns, footsteps, routines, and returns. His whole body had become tuned to one person. That is more beautiful than psychic power. A psychic dog would only receive a signal. JT was the signal. And your dog, in their own quiet way, may be doing the same thing. So this week, try something. Do not watch the door. Watch your dog. Watch for the tiny movement before the waiting begins. The ear twitch, the slow blink, the sudden stillness, the head lifting from the rug before there is anything to hear. That little movement is the moment their private clock goes off. And when you see it, come back and tell me what your dog's tell is. Because once you notice it, you may never look at that small moment the same way again.